Hello and welcome to Politics Today, and in this programme today we'll be discussing the abuse that many Christians face on social media and what can be done about it. And my guests today are Tim Dieppe, who is the Islamic Director at Christian Concern, and Ambrosine Shitrit from Campaign for Truth. So welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
And Tim, I just have to say that Christian Concern is at the forefront of defending Christian values in the UK, and we all appreciate the wonderful efforts that you, Andrew Williams, and the whole team is doing for the sake of Christian freedoms in the UK.
Thank you.
And Ambrosine, it's great because you're our Jewish guest, and
Yes.
you've been working very hard to really address the whole issue of anti-Semitism or Jew hatred online, and that's why you're here today to discuss what you've experienced in monitoring anti-Semitism online, and particularly on social media, and you're seeing a large proportion of attacks against Christians. So can you share with us what you have seen in terms of abuse against Christians on social media?
Well, we initially are an organisation called Iron Anti-Semitism, and we predominantly sit upon social media networks such as Twitter and Facebook and others to monitor the growing rate of anti-Semitism from users, particularly from all over the world. But what we seemed to notice quite a long time ago was that we were seeing vehement anti-Christian hatred. And we're talking about things which would be probably a criminal offence if it was said in public. And we got to understand that alongside anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish hatred and Holocaust denial and the usual posts that come up when there is a political event happening, we also see that when in the news there is a concern about a Christian news story, that the rate of anti-Christian abuse online from all different sides of the spectrum, from not one particular religious user or a particular ethnicity, would come on to Facebook, but mainly Twitter, and start to rant about Christian values, about the Bible. And so we saw that there was a sort of a similar aspect to anti-Semitism, but there wasn't a word that we could frame it from. So if a Christian was attacked particularly, we don't know where to categorise that. We weren't monitoring it. And so we asked a few people around if they would like to have figures and data about anti-Christian hatred, and we sort of had the door shut in our faces. It was like they wanted to sweep it under the carpet.
I mean, that's news to me because obviously I'm not on social media for a reason, but I was aware of the extent of Jew hatred on social media, Tim, and some of the hatred we've seen online, particularly those who are trolls, who use Facebook and they use Twitter and Instagram and other things, but wasn't aware of the extent of the abuse against Christians. Has this been much of an issue at Christian Concern?
Well, it's surfaced in a recent legal case that we've sadly had to take up. A chap called Felix Nagol, who actually was a student at Sheffield University studying for an MA in social work, and he was on Facebook, and in his Facebook he posted a post in support of Kim Hartstone, who had issues around not wanting to officiate at gay marriages, and got into discussion with other Facebook users and posted in support of a traditional view of marriage as being between a man and a woman, and that same-sex marriage is not real marriage and that kind of thing. And shockingly, he was expelled from university for these posts, which were just upholding the law as it was only a few years ago in this country, and just expressing a traditional standard Christian view of what marriage is and what marriage is for. He came to us. We helped him. We had a number of meetings with the university authorities at Sheffield University, and surprisingly they came to nothing, and he remains expelled from his course. This basically constitutes a bar from Christians expressing their views on social media in order to stay in university, it seems. I mean, it's an extraordinarily strong prohibition of free speech, effectively, even though that view is meant to be protected in law, even though that view is, as I say, only what the law was a few years ago and is widely held all over the country. And so we're looking to take that to court and escalate that and try and protect his right and the right of many others to express standard traditional Christian views on marriage and sexuality.
When it comes to Christians participating in social media, particularly either sending out Twitters in response to a certain kind of news story, or sending out a kind of Bible verse, or posting their kind of Christian beliefs online. I know that many of our wonderful viewers do that as well. Is there not a fear that some of them have a fear of a backlash, places of work, that they could face discrimination or even being dismissed because they share their faith and they share this is what they believe in, and they feel that social media is a way of reaching out to their friends, their family and other people with a message of the gospel, but now they're fearful of doing that because they feel they could face persecution.
What we find is when a case comes to us, that's like the tip of the iceberg, and underneath it means there's other issues been surfacing along. A lot of other people have faced this kind of pressure. I think there's a lot of self-censorship actually that goes on because people are afraid of exactly what you're saying from expressing their views. I think that this is one reason perhaps why political surveys have got things wrong about Brexit and Trump and other things, and because there's a lot of self-censorship, a lot of people not wanting to get picked on and get harassed and perhaps get difficulties at work or wherever they are from expressing the views that they actually think. And so I think there is some real issues with self-censorship and therefore with general freedom of expression on social media, on the internet and in the workplace as well.
And Abrasin, when we're dealing with this issue, fundamentally it's an issue of hate, isn't it? And this is what we're confronting. Those people are driven by hate to write extremely hateful and nasty comments online where they feel that they're protected because they're not in the real world, they're in the virtual world, but it still has a very damaging impact. But why do you think the government is doing so much, and rightly so, to confront the rise of Jew hatred, also addressing the issue of Islamophobia, they say, and then other attacks on other minorities, but not addressing the attacks on Christians?
It is very interesting. We've noticed that the government have only got involved in hate crime issues over the past few years with the explosion of Twitter and Facebook, knowing that there are independent, small grassroots groups representing particularly the Jewish community and the Muslim community who have seen that the hatred online has been to such an extent that when you take the object or the message to the police, there's not much they can do. They'll need to find the person behind the message. Usually they're anonymous. So really the police have been inundated with messages and phone calls and reports from particularly the Muslim and Jewish community. When it comes to Christianity, when it comes to Christian abuse, and as I said, there's not really a term to define Christian abuse, which I think is wrong. The real thing is that they believe that because Christians are a majority in this country, and although we're talking about worldwide hate crime, we're talking particularly today in the UK, that Christians are the majority, that they all stick together, that, if someone abuses, like a Monty Python film about the Christian Bible or the Christian values system, that we can, or Christians can take it. And I say we as being part of the Judeo-Christian community. So it's really interesting that even today there is not one organisation that monitors, particularly online and offline, anti-Christian abuse, and that is shocking, and something needs to be done about it.
Absolutely. That is a ridiculous argument, though, isn't it? If Jews were a majority, does that mean anti-Semitism would be okay? I mean, exactly. It makes no sense whatsoever to say just because Christianity is the official religion of this country, therefore it's okay to abuse Christians and express hatred towards Christians. That's just a ridiculous argument that they're making there.
And I think it takes your viewers, it may take somebody within the Christian network to set up some sort of organisation to help monitor the anti-Christian abuse. Now, I would like to separate the abuse that Christians get from, obviously, the terrible situation that's in the Middle East at the moment, where Coptic Christians are being murdered willingly in Egypt and all over the Middle East. But we have to sort of focus our attention on what is happening here in the UK. And I talk about the UK particularly because we have a very good backup system when it comes to hate crime. In America, you will see that, have a huge Christian community of all different shapes and sizes, and they are very proud to show their Christian heritage. And as you say, they're putting Bible verses online, they're talking about Jesus, they're talking about praise God, and that seems to be fine. But when it comes to people in the UK, there is this sort of feeling that if I pronounce my Christianity, if I'm open about it online, if I talk about Easter's coming up or Christmas is coming up, there is this fear that somebody is going to harass me for it. And I see it every day on these social media platforms, that there is harassment against Christian users.
Absolutely. And Tim, we are sadly living in a climate of hate and a climate of fear, and we've seen that a huge escalation on attacks against Jewish people. I mean, the Community Security Trust that monitor anti-Semitism and look after the security of the Jewish community said that 2016 was the highest on record. And we're also seeing a huge amount of abuse and attack against Christians. Isn't this something that we should actually get to grips with? Because Christians should be able to feel that they should be able to post something on Facebook or send out a tweet and not feel any reprisals or attacks just for the beliefs that we both share.
Yes, I mean, I agree with you. I'm very concerned about anti-Semitism and attacks on anybody at all, whether Jews or Muslims or Christians or whoever, and violence or threats or anything like that are clearly abusive and need to be clamped down on, need to be stopped, whoever they're against. And I think that's exactly what we should be doing, and people should be bold enough to point it out and come to us or come to other organisations and highlight it, or go to the police and not just take it, or not just close your Twitter account or your Facebook account or take the post down, whatever. Actually, take up the protections that actually the law does afford for people in this country, with quite robust hate crime that there is there already.
And Ambrosine, can you share with some of us, obviously some of the most extreme anti-Christian posts that you've seen online?
Well, usually a lot of the Christians that are in the United States will predominantly be attached on social media such as Facebook with the Jewish users, because they are in support of Israel. So you will find that most of the anti-Christian attacks take place with the support of Israel. And what we see is this barrage of hatred against probably Jesus and God, and the Bible says this and they are particularly violent, so why are you saying this about us? It is more of a political issue. I don't think that I have seen particularly many users go straight for the jugular, straight for talking about Jesus in a derogatory manner, but when it comes entwined with political issues, and obviously with your news in the news about the lady at the airport who was suspended or sacked because she wore a cross, or when somebody in a hospital prays over a patient in a Christian prayer, that becomes newsworthy, then we will see the rise of anti-Christian rhetoric on social media. And as I said again, there needs to be a name for it. Islamophobia was something that was initiated for a hatred or a fear of Islam or a phobia of Islam. Anti-Semitism has been used for a century. So we need to have something that defines anti-Christian hatred. I don't know if you have anything that in mind, but we need to get something established. If there is a definition of anti-Christian hatred with a name, I'm sure that the authorities would take it a little bit more seriously. But you do have a media backlash whenever there is a news case coming up that somebody couldn't wear a Christian piece of jewellery or cross. There does seem to be this backlash from the media first that, wow, that's not right, nobody should wear something religious at work, and then you'll start to see the rhetoric coming on social media. So it does play into each other.
And Tim, this does pose a bit of a problem for Christian Concern, because it's thanks to your organisation that we get a lot of these stories in the press in the first place, and the public wouldn't know about them if it wasn't for the incredible work being done by Christian Concern. So do you think there is a way that this could be countered? Maybe supporters of Christian Concern could respond with positive news comments. I mean, you look at the Daily Mail Online, for example. You've got opportunities then to put comments next to the news articles, or to put comments when people post them on Facebook, or send them out on Twitter with the actual story themselves. Shouldn't we be using social media in order to educate and inform more people of the situation facing Christians in the UK, rather than being concerned about the direct threat that this may pose to people online because they think, well, I'm not prepared to face any abuse?
Well, I'd be very concerned if people say you shouldn't tell people about this, or you shouldn't highlight it because it could provoke a backlash or whatever, that sort of thing. I think absolutely people need to know what is happening and the pressure that Christians are finding, and in some cases losing their jobs for taking a traditional standard view on Christian ethics and things. We had a case recently of a teacher, Vicky Allen, who was disciplined when a student came and asked her personally what her view is on marriage and homosexuality, and she expressed the view and then was disciplined. Now, with our help, the school ended up apologising for that and realising that it shouldn't have done it. And actually we do have protections in law for this, but the fact is that people think that this is unexpressible, and shouldn't be expressed. And I think this kind of thing needs to come out, needs to be told. And then, quite right, there's comments on newspaper articles now, and surveys as well, and we do encourage our supporters and others to, balance the views out and point out where views are overly hateful or perhaps threatening in sometimes. Where there's polls as well, is just get out there and put your view out there, and make sure that your voice is being listened to, and that people realise there's actually a lot of support for these views and a lot of support for Christians out there, and that this needs to be respected.
I just would like to just interject here. We have a system called Hasbara, which you may have heard of, which is the form of advocating for our Judaism or our political beliefs of Israel. And I think what we see is, and particularly I do, is that when there is a news story, as you mentioned, and there are comments on Facebook and online, the worry is that you get into a subject such as traditional marriage or abortion or things like that, and people are afraid of actually posting their true beliefs. And I think that what we need in the Christian community is a form of Hasbara, a form of grassroots groups that get together, formulate themselves to become internet warriors. And, the war, as it says, is online. It is not in the streets, it is online. So we do need Christian involvement, particularly from your viewers. I would say to you out there that you need to form maybe through your churches or groups together, to get together and formulate something that will achieve, remarkable results. So when there is a news item on Israel that we don't agree with, we actually all form together, and we go onto these websites, and we go onto Facebook, and we formulate together to express our views. They may get turned down, we may get them deleted, but we continue and continue. This has to be the case. Another thing I would say is that making your Christian values known, you'd be deemed to be sometimes a racist or a nationalist, or you're called a fascist. Same with pro-Israel, if you come across as being pro-Israel. You've got to be tough out there, and you've got to get something done, because the rate of anti-Christian behaviour on social media is for everyone to see, and it's getting worse.
Absolutely. And I think Ambrosine is remarkable, Tim, because here she is representing the Jewish community, dealing and confronting with Jew hatred, and also telling us Christians we need to get our act together to monitor this abuse against Christians online. In terms of policy, and this is something maybe that we can approach Christian members of Parliament on to say, would you be willing to discuss this in Parliament? Because obviously if it's a huge problem out there, and I don't know the extent of the problem, but if it's a big problem, then we know that our own views should be safeguarded. So why should Christians be attacked for sharing their own faith and also having a biblical standard of morality that's come under threat because these ultra-liberals don't like it?
No, you're quite right, and we're quite concerned about the direction that this is going in some ways in Parliament. You know, Dame Louise Casey brought out her reports on integration and things, but then she said we should promote British values, one of which is equality, and then under questioning in Parliament, she made clear that schools should not be allowed to promote a view that says same-sex marriage is not real marriage. And that's what she views as equality. So, you know, you've got to uphold equality, and by equality that means upholding what they call equal marriage, as in marriage between two men or two women or whatever. And that is, you know, very much targeting Jews and Christians and many others who believe that marriage should be between a man and a woman, as it always has been between a man and a woman. And so this sort of political view and sort of, you know, and talk of saying you need to swear an oath to British values in order to hold public office, and therefore, you know, if that's interpreted as an oath to equality, which means you have an oath effectively to supporting same-sex marriage, then suddenly you'd have a bar to Christians in public office, because a Christian who doesn't believe that marriage is between two men wouldn't swear an oath saying, I uphold equality in that sense. Or could be found to not be upholding equality if they say that's not what marriage is. Do you see what I mean? So then Absolutely. It becomes a real sort of totalitarian type of system where you have to believe these things, you have to say these things, otherwise you're not going to be listened to, you can't hold office, you can't have a job, whatever it is. And that's very concerning indeed, and I think we need to really wake up to that and rise up to it and get politicians to recognise that this is a real issue.
Yeah. Ambrosine, we're down to the last 4 minutes of the programme. Now, yeah, there's a lot of older people starting to use Facebook now, a lot older than myself and Tim and us, which is a good thing, because obviously they can then communicate their beliefs, their political beliefs, and also their spiritual beliefs as well. But it's really young people that are really in this internet world, and many of them are probably being born and they don't know anything but the internet. So and social media is everything to them. What advice do you have for young Christians that face abuse online?
Yes, it's really interesting, because I don't see enough Christians in the UK, from user accounts in the UK, getting online and expressing their Christian belief. We get a lot from the United States, and they're so proud, as I said before, to get online and to talk about Christian and to do vlogging, which you may know is the video blogging. But I would say to anyone, no matter what your age, even if you just take it on your phone or an iPad, through your computer, just put something up, a picture, a beautiful picture with some flowers or something, with a Christian Bible verse, and see the reaction. And you'll find, I think, that you'll start slowly over months to start to get more users, more followers. It's something that you have to do. And if you do get abuse, if anything does happen to you, if you do get attacked, then you can either block the person, so there's no harm to yourself. But you've got to stand up for yourself. And as I said, we need to really confront this Christian hatred. We've done it with the Muslims, we've done it with the Jewish community, now we have to start doing it with the Christian community. You have to stand up for your rights and for your beliefs.
And Tim, we're down to less than 2 minutes of the programme, so how should our viewers respond when they face hatred online and abuse online because of their Christian beliefs?
I mean, if it's actually threatening or something, you should go to the police about it, but otherwise I agree with Ambrosine, you can block them, you can silence them, and if there's arguments in there, get out there and respond to the arguments and show them what's wrong.
And how important is social media to Christian concern and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, we use it a lot. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we put out videos, and we put out stories and memes, and we promote our activities quite a lot through social media, yeah.
So that's very important. And Ambrosine, I'll give you the final word in kind of about 30 seconds or more. I just want to thank you for what you're doing and also for raising this as such an important issue. If there are some of our viewers, can they get in touch with you personally?
Yes, you can. I'm on Eye on Anti-Semitism, which means your eye on Anti-Semitism on Twitter and on Facebook. And we're also under Campaign for Truth with the figure 4. And you're very welcome to even contact Revelation TV if you have letters or concerns, and I will reply to that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Because I think this is something that should be addressed and something I wasn't completely aware of until I had Ambrosine on my other programme, which is called the Middle East Report, and then realised that we have to do something against it. So I want to thank you so much, both of you, for raising this very important issue, and thank you for the incredible work that you're doing, Tim, with Christians Concerned. We all appreciate it, and we're very grateful. I want to thank you for watching Politics Today and discussing the issue of Christian hatred on social media and also online, and something I wasn't that much aware of, but I'm sure that many of you have been aware of it. So it's important that we do not have a problem of fear, that we overcome fear with prayer, and that we shouldn't be ashamed to proclaim our Christian faith. So thank you for watching today's Politics Today.